Wonderful story of love. Tell it to me again. Wonderful story of love. With the immortal strain. Angels with rapture announce it. Shepherds with wonder receive it. Sinner, oh, won't you believe it? Wonderful story of love. 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 Though you are far away. Wonderful story of love. Still he doth call today. Calling from Calvary's mountain.
All right, so chapter 3, I guess I'll start by offering kind of a theme, my theme. Genuine covenant love. And we've defined this, but it's probably been several weeks ago, and we got a few people in the room that that may not have been part of that discussion. When I talk about covenant love, I'm talking about not just generic, general love that we're to feel for all men. We're commanded even to love our enemies. There is a measure of love that is afforded all people, or should be afforded all people. It's not always afforded to all people, but it should be. That's not what we're talking about. We're not even talking about just general familial love, the way that we love our grandparents, or the way that we love our aunts and uncles or cousins or any of those other folks. Not even familial love in the sense of the way we love our children, but very uniquely the kind of love that we connect to a covenant, to an agreement, a binding agreement with obligations, with cost, and other things associated with it. What do we call that in common vernacular? Marriage. It is that kind of a relationship that's described in the very beginning of God's revelation as the cause of a man leaving his father and mother and becoming one with his wife, which is a very drastic and even dramatic expression. The idea of separating yourself from your natural parents to become not just in a relationship with someone else, but in a relationship that fundamentally makes you one with someone else. So a group of people get together and they form a partnership in business. They still function as individuals. And so partnership falls short of what a covenant relationship would involve. We're talking about a relationship that removes the individual identity and replaces it with a corporate identity. And you can't deal with one without the other. And so the husband needs to understand that he needs to love his wife as he loves his own body, and that to hate his wife or to not respect his wife, to not treat his wife properly is the same thing as doing what? Hating his own body, not treating himself properly, not respecting himself. It should fundamentally change our understanding and our view. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about a genuine covenant love. And so the theme here is the genuine covenant love that is not content with separation. And so it diligently seeks fellowship while it is anticipating the joyful celebration of complete union, which has not happened in this story yet. despite the fact that some people would argue differently. It's very clear to me when that is achieved in this story. Um, so this chapter is advancing the movement of that process from the invitation where it started to the pursuit, and it's now preparing us as readers for that covenant union that stands at the center of the book and as the thesis that it is presenting to us. All right, so let's just look at the first 5 verses together, and then we'll discuss. On my bed by night, I sought him whom my soul loves. I sought him, but found him not. I will rise now and go about the city, in the streets and in the squares. I will seek him whom my soul loves. I sought him, but found him not. Do you notice a recurring theme? The watchmen found me as they went about in the city. Have you seen him whom my soul loves? Scarcely I had passed them when I found him whom my soul loves. I held him, and I would not let him go until I had brought him into my mother's house and into the chamber of her who conceived me. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, by the gazelles or the does of the field, that you not stir up or awaken love until it pleases. That last bit of language is significant in making certain that we don't misunderstand what's said in the middle of this. I want to bring him to my mother's home. I want to bring him into her chambers. Um, anyway, I'll do what I said I was going to do. I'm going to open the floor. I'm going to assume that there are people in the room who have already read the chapter. And what are your thoughts about what's going on here in the opening of this chapter? Don't be too quiet. Be brave. Your observation may even be better than mine. So, yes, ma'am. Okay, that has certainly been a theme throughout these opening chapters, is that there has to be agreement, that there has to be a willingness, that you have to be a willing participant to this kind of a relationship. And by the way, we need to be careful not to make any mistakes that are created through our worldview or paradigm that comes from our cultural upbringing. Most of us might, I guess maybe I shouldn't say most of us, many of us might make the mistake of thinking that arranged marriages are unwilling relationships. That is not true. It's a different way of entering a relationship. It is an entrustment to your parents to choose your mate rather than choose for yourself. I had a instructor in college, actually. I think she was a PhD, so I guess I'll call her a professor in college, who came from a culture of arranged marriages and, in fact, was in an arranged marriage, which was a very deep and loving relationship. And I learned a lot in conversations with her about that because I had trouble at that point in time seeing an arrangement like that as possibly reflecting choice. Um, just because it's entered into in that fashion does not mean that you don't choose to love. Now, it is clearly a relationship that can manifest this growth imagery here in a way that our relationships are quite different. Um, if you're choosing for yourself your own mate, you would assume that the desire and the knowledge of one another pre-exists the invitation for a covenant relationship. You don't generally run out and ask somebody to marry you and then try to get to know them and decide whether they'll be a good spouse. But in an Eastern culture, they're introduced sometimes in their youth as being, this is going to be your husband one day. This is going to be your wife one day. And and that development, after that decision has already been made, after the contract's already been entered into by the parents, um, very much more closely resembles the development of desire and trust and fellowship, than what our minds generally conceive of. So it's not all bad. Uh, did anybody notice how differently this chapter opened than the way chapter 2 ended? Okay, right. Yep, it's there. There's a contrast, but do you remember the very end of the second chapter is this expression of "I am my beloved's and my beloved is mine," and this very strong description of fellowship and togetherness. And this one opens with a statement of what? He's not there and I can't find him, which is a direct contrast to the way chapter 2 ended. Now, does this mean that the relationship has fallen on rocky times? No, it means that it hasn't been consummated yet. And so, though the desire is there and though the commitment is there, there's still separation. And what we're starting to see is I'm not content with separation. So if your Bible's like mine, there's chapter headings that have been supplied. These are supplied by men. A lot of times they reflect the interpretive view of the people who wrote them. My chapter begins with the heading, "The Bride's Dream." I'm not convinced this is a dream. Uh, that may be a better heading, because I think what's being described here is someone who is going to bed and not able to sleep because of the consternation of spirit that is caused by this division and inability to be with. Now, is it figurative language? Did she really get up in the middle of the night and search the city? I don't know, but that expresses the very strong desire and wanting to fix the problem. I'm not content just lying here in bed, separated from my love. I'm going to go find my love. But the problem is, I don't know where he's at. Now, again, remember a couple of chapters ago, at the end of chapter 1 or the very beginning of chapter 2, she asks, "Where are you at?" And he says, "What? Just follow the tracks of," again, he's a shepherd. "Just follow the tracks of the sheep and you'll find me. You'll just follow me out to the field where I am." The setting's changed here. She's in the city now looking for him. Um, Sometimes, oh, let me ask it this way. Have you ever felt like that you've gotten to know someone or something very well, intimately, you understand everything about it, and then something happens and you go, we weren't as close as I thought we were. I didn't understand them as well as I thought I did. Or that surprises me. And sometimes, by the way, that happens after 20, 30, 40 years of marriage. You wake up one day and somebody that you think you know and that you can even anticipate what they're going to do before any communication is taking place. Well, I know how they're going to react to this, and they react in a completely different way. And you step back and go, do I know them as well as I thought I did? I think there's an aspect of that that's being portrayed here where she's realized this isn't where this relationship needs to be. If we want to make a spiritual application of that, as a Christian, have you ever been in a place where you're going along and you're pretty good, and you think, you know what, I'm doing well. I got this figured out. I'm dedicated to God. I'm dedicated to Christ. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and then awakened one day and said, wait a minute. Well, am I do I really know and understand as much as I ought to know and understand? Did I really obey the gospel when I confessed and was baptized? Was my heart really where it needed to be? Did I really understand what I needed to understand? Was I really committing myself? And then you have these doubts. Or you read something, you talk to someone, nowadays you watch a YouTube video, you get exposed to an idea or a concept, and you become persuaded by that idea or concept, but it runs counter to your faith, and you start asking, what do I really believe? Now, again, making the application to a material relationship, a marital type relationship. You're engaged to someone and you love them and you're looking forward to the marriage and you're planning the marriage, and then you're walking down the street and somebody catches your eye and you wonder, what am I really committed the way I think I am? Is that really what I want? Or you actually get to know another person and you start going, well, I don't know, maybe I'm a better fit with this person. But you're 2/3 away down the track already to cementing a relationship with somebody else. What do you do? That becomes the tone of many television shows and movies in our culture. You know why things become tones? Because people relate to them. People experience them and understand them and have been there themselves, and that makes the story relatable and interesting. And what writers of things like that are attempting to do is offering resolutions to those situations that they think are good, normal, healthy resolutions, or else offering intentionally ones that are not good and healthy resolutions to make the point that this isn't the course to go. Um, Maybe it's one of those situations. I'm committed to my beloved. My beloved is committed to me. Wait a minute, I'm not as close to my beloved as I want to be. So why is that? Why am I laying here in bed? Again, let's make an application in a spiritual situation. You have those moments where you go, I'm not as committed to this Christianity thing as I thought I was. I'm not doing what I think I ought to be doing as a Christian. Do we just lay around on our bed and contemplate that? Or do we get up and go out and start trying to fix that? If I realize, I haven't talked to anybody in a couple of weeks about the gospel and about their souls and their salvation, am I really going into all the world and preaching the gospel to every creature? Do I sit there long enough and distract myself with other things till I forget about that feeling and I can go on with my life without doing it? Or do I foster that feeling and use it as a catalyst into action to rectify the separation from Christ that and what I see here is she's laying on bed, she realizes, wait a minute, I'm seeking the one whom now notice she says whom my soul loves. She understands the depth of the love. That's not the question. The question is, does the depth of the love represent the reality of the life? I sought him. Did she remain on her bed? No, she got up. I will rise now and go about the city, in the streets and in the streets. Is that a safe place to be at night? What happens at night? Bad things happen at night. Bad people come out at night. In the cover of night, illicit things happen. And the people who like to do illicit things are the ones who are out roaming about. I think it was Edgar Winter and his group White Trash that released an album one time entitled They Only Come Out at Night. There are people like that. And yet this single, unmarried woman, vulnerable and exposed, is out searching all the streets of the city. Despite the risk, because in her mind, the risk is worth the outcome. What's the outcome? I am with my beloved. That's more important to me than my life. Is that a theme consistent with how Christians should view themselves? Yeah. We should be willing to do what? No greater love has man than this, that he would lay down his life for his friend. Do not fear those who are able to kill the body, but fear the one who's able to destroy both body and soul. My relationship with God is more important than things that are important. Life is not unimportant. There's not a word of the Bible anywhere that suggests that life is unimportant. But there are places in the Bible that says life is not of greatest importance. That being in fellowship with God is more important. To the point that Paul would write by inspiration that he would gladly forfeit his life for the well-being of his brethren. If the forfeiting of his life was going to save others, that's fine with him. That's how much he wanted to be in fellowship with Christ. When I read passages like that, I start asking myself, do I want to be with my beloved that much? And then what do I intellectually say? Of course I do. And then when I analyze the way I live, if I'm honest with myself, what do I say? Maybe I don't. I want to. And by the way, I think that describes a lot of people in a lot of material relationships. Husbands want to be faithful to their wives and then aren't. And that falls underneath the specter of excuses of, I couldn't help it. Yes, you can. But what they're trying to express is, I wanted to do the right thing. And there's a lot of people who want to do the right thing and then can't do it because they are too tied to the other and not willing to let go of it, right? There's a lot of people who want to quit being drunkards, but they don't do it. Why? Is it because they don't want to? No, it's not because they don't want to. At the time that they make they really want to stop. It's that they're not willing to pay the cost of stopping. At some point along the way, the cost gets higher than they're willing to pay. And that is true of every behavior, every activity, every thought. We are told that all of our thoughts should be brought under captivity by us. That we should not think wrongly. And yet we do. And that's expressed, is it in the book of Romans? Is it in the letter to the Romans? Or is it to one of the churches of Paul where he talks about that struggle within himself? where he wants to do the right thing, but his body doesn't let him. That's the same struggle we're talking about, wherever that's at. It's there. That's the struggle we're talking about. It's a struggle that's common to life. And if we don't admit that we have that struggle from time to time, we are deceiving ourselves. And what does John tell us about deceiving ourselves in that way? If we say that we're without sin, we're deceiving ourselves and the truth is not in us. That's what I thought it was. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't wrong because I hadn't read it in the last week or two. And I'm like, you know what? I could be just pulling the wrong book out completely. And that's embarrassing. Romans 7. Thank you. Bailed out by the class. All right. That's kind of what I see in these 5 verses. The absence immediately exposes the depth of this relationship. The relationship at this point is not lacking depth. It's just that the reality of circumstances doesn't match the depth. It hasn't consummated yet. What's that word consummated even mean? What's the closest word that we actually do use sometimes to that word? Okay, consume, and another one that's tangentially kin, commence. To come together. To begin. That's the idea behind that word. So when we talk about consummating a marriage, that's what we're talking about. For the oneness nature of the relationship to begin. And so, without being too graphic, I'll ask for responses. I'm asking you to not be too graphic. Although, if it is, it's not going to offend me. So I'll just go ahead and tell you that. It may offend the censors. But we generally don't view a marriage as having been consummated at the engagement, at the celebration, at even the exchange of the vows. When do we say the marriage is consummated? The wedding night. After the festivities are over, when they come together and actually practice the marital prerogatives, that we associate. The marriage bed is undefiled. That's the big central thing that makes marriage different than other relationships, right? Is to engage in that kind of behavior outside of a covenant love is fornication, but within the marriage bed, it's not. And so, properly executed, that marital congress, which, by the way, is another word that means what? Congress is togetherness. That marital congress is what we generally mark as the marriage being consummated. To the point, this is so strong legally, at least it used to be, not so much anymore because nobody cares about marriage in a legal sense much anymore. Marriages can be thrown out for no reason at all, as a matter of fact. In fact, some jurisdictions, you can't offer a reason for marriage and you can't fight someone wanting to divorce you. If someone says, I want a divorce, the state grants it and you can't even respond to it or defend yourself and say, no, I want this marriage. I want to fight for this marriage. Here's all the reasons why we should stay married. The judge will not hear any of that. You can't even put a defense up. You can be divorced completely against your will. Your desire matters nothing. That's how far we've gone. But for many years, before the marriage night consummation of the marriage, you could actually secure an annulment rather than a divorce because the marriage had not yet been consummated. Even though the process had been gone through, without that marital congress, it was not yet complete. And so as we think about that, we need to understand this. I can profess Christianity, I can profess my love for Christ, I can profess my love for God, I can profess a lot of things, but until I'm engaged in the behavior that is unique to the relationship, it hasn't really consummated. It hasn't really begun. We're not truly in Congress. And so she's out trying to do something about it. And she comes to the watchman. Now, why are there city watchmen? Who are these city watchmen? Who employs the city watchman? The king. Guess who her beloved is? So these are people that are associated with the king. That's why they get mentioned here. She comes to the watchman and she says, have you seen? And it's interesting here. She doesn't say, have you seen the king? Have you seen my beloved? She says, have you seen him whom my soul loves? Which tells me two things. Number one, the depth of the relationship, that's the repeated language. That's the significant thing. And it tells me, number two, there were already open signs where someone would have known who that was. This wasn't a personally held feeling. This was a feeling which that I would say, if I say to someone, have you seen the person whom my soul loves? A complete stranger, let's say, they would probably say, what? Who is that? I don't know who you're talking about. I don't know if I've seen him or not. But this tells me that these people would have known whom she was talking about. And then she says, scarcely had I passed them. This conversation is past. There's no fruit born from it. She doesn't get the answer she's looking for. Scarcely had I passed them when I found him. Again, the language, whom my soul loves. For a third time in 5 verses, that language appears. Don't miss how significant that makes the idea. The desire is deep, it's real, it's abiding, but she realizes it's not practical. It's only theoretical. And she wants to do something about that. So when she finds him, it says, I held him and would not let him go. I wanted to bring him home with me. At this point, she's still at her mom's house. I want to bring him back to my mother's house. Now, the important thing about verse 5 is we're being told what? And if I'm not mistaken, I know we've talked about this before. I don't know if it was in the introduction or if it's actually been, this is the second time it's been stated. I think it's the second time it's been stated, if memory serves me correct. What's the significance of this language? What is she saying? We're not married yet. It is not appropriate for this to go to that spot. So this is not about, I want to bring him home into my mother's bed, which is actually what one of the commentators I read suggested. This is, don't stir up those feelings until it's appropriate to have those feelings. But I do not want there to be separation between us. I want to be with him. I want him to be with me. Others can assist us in the process. She turns to the watchman and says, hey, can you help me find him? But the fact of the matter is, ultimately, it boils down to what? Me. My dedication, my determination, my action. What am I doing to solidify the relationship? And so there's this renewed devotion that's expressed here. She's clearly now actively devoted to pursuing this covenant relationship. I have to stop. I didn't get quite as far as I wanted to, but hopefully it was a productive discussion. We will look at the last half of this chapter to begin with next week. I'll go ahead and give you some foreshadowing. The bridegroom comes. The second half of this chapter is kind of a response from the bridegroom side. And so keep that in mind, and we'll look at this next time. Thanks for your participation.
Wonderful story of love, tell it to me again. Wonderful story of love, with the immortal strain. Angels with rapture announce it, shepherds with wonder receive it. Sinner, oh, won't you believe it? Wonderful story of love, 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 wonderful story.